Visa requirements and resident permits in Tanzania, East Africa that you should know about. Stay tuned to learn more. Welcome everyone to Smart Up Travel. I am Ifeanyi. Thank you. Thank you very much. You're far too kind. Thank you. Tanzania, home to some of the world's most famous attractions like Mount Kilimanjaro and Ngorongoro National Park and many more. But one of the amazing treasures of Tanzania is definitely its people, welcoming and friendly. Jambo, hujambo, karibu sana. Welcome to Tanzania are some of the words that rolls out their lips when you enter Tanzania. However, there is a difference between the locals or citizens of Tanzania and also the government policies, immigration policies in Tanzania that you should be aware of. You may want to stay in Tanzania for a longer period of time, and there are definitely some visas that you need to be aware of, or possibly a resident permit that you should be aware of. So by the end of this video, you'll have a solid idea of some of the visas and resident permits that you should be aware of. But before I go further, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel by clicking on the red box below this video that says subscribe. Now, I'll be talking about a student pass or student visa. For most part, some individuals would like to stay in Tanzania for a longer period of time. And one of the options they can go for is studying in Tanzania, and they will require a student pass. Now, let me give you an example. Swahili is the national language of Tanzania. It is spoken throughout the country. It's a unifying language. There are over 100 tribes in Tanzania, and Swahili is a very good language for communication purposes between the groups of people. So being familiar with the language, having a basic understanding of the language is a good start and introduction for you if you're planning to stay in the country for a longer period of time. So what some people do is study Kiswahili at a learning institution or legally recognized institution in Tanzania, and you require a student pass to study in Tanzania. So here's what you need to know. Students who wish to visit Tanzania for various academic issues for a period not exceeding 3 months may be issued a student pass for $50. So if the course that you're studying in Tanzania is not more than 3 months, then you can get a student pass, and that will cost you around $50. Whereas those who come for the same purpose, but they'll be studying for a period exceeding 3 months, meaning more than 3 months, then that will cost you $250. So that depends on how long your course may be. If it exceeds 3 months, then you'll be paying $250 for your student pass. In some rare cases, there may be people who are coming to Tanzania specifically for research purposes, and depending on their research, they may be taking a certain amount of time there, and they may be researching in various parts in the country, field research and different things like that. Then that will cost them $550, and they'll be issued a student pass which will be valid for 2 years. Now, I'm sure you're hearing me say student pass or student visa. Now, these are used interchangeably in Tanzania, so don't be confused when I say student pass or student visa. It's the same thing. The terms are interchangeably used in Tanzania. When applying for the student pass, it is important to ensure that you have a cover letter from the learning institution where you will be studying. The letter should be in detail, giving information about the course you're studying, and also the program duration, how long it will be, and also the days you will be attending. These are some of the important things that the learning institution where you're studying, they need to include this information in the cover letter. So when you're applying for your student pass, the immigration people will be able to see these details. So this is very, very important. Here's a key tip. Though this is not always required of you, it is good practice to have it. And that is a police clearance certificate. Now, if you're coming from the United States, it is known as the US police clearance, which shows evidence of no criminal records in the US, or if you're in the UK, it is known as the DBS, or whatever country you are coming from. Ensure that you at least get a police clearance criminal record from that country. So when you come to places like Tanzania or even other countries in Africa, in the event that it is asked for you, if you want to do certain things, you can produce it straight away and not have to wait a long period of time to send information back home to try and get it. It is good practice to have it on you when you travel to Tanzania. A final point I would like to add in regards to the student pass, and this specifically goes out to people who may be traveling with children and your children may be studying at a learning institution in Tanzania. Please ensure you have their academic certificates, birth certificates, 4 passport size photos, and also the admissions letter or joining letter from the institution they will be studying in Tanzania. These are some of the important documents that you need to have, and also their passport and any other necessary documents that may be required of you by the Commission of Immigration in Tanzania. So these are some of the things that you should have. Another way of staying in Tanzania for a longer period of time is via the way of volunteering. Now, some people will have already secured a volunteering position with a non-governmental organization in Tanzania before they even arrive to Tanzania. Now, to volunteer in Tanzania, this doesn't come under the visa section. This falls under the residence permit, and to be specific, residence permit category C5, which covers volunteers, and that is persons engaged in non-payment activities on a voluntary basis. In order to secure this residence permit, you will need to have a volunteer contract, and that will include the job description, what you'll be doing with the organization. Also, evidence of activities of the NGO from a relevant government institution, i.e. social welfare. So this company or NGO you'll be working for, it needs to be recognized by a relevant government institution. A copy of the constitution of the organization needs to be presented. So a constitution of the organization you're working for, and in some cases, physical verification visit report when necessary. So the authorities in Tanzania may need to visit this organization to actually see where you're working. So these are some of the requirements that you will need to have to secure this residence permit. Now, usually your NGO or the volunteer organization you're working for will support you greatly with the process, and it costs around $550 to secure this residence permit after you have meet the requirements I've just mentioned. Now, the maximum validity of this residence permit is 2 years. It may be renewable, and that will be depending on your work you'll be doing in Tanzania, the voluntary contract you're having with your NGO organization. It depends. But usually this residence permit, it's valid for 2 years. Here's a key tip for you. It will be beneficial if you can connect with an NGO organization here in Tanzania before even traveling to Tanzania. You may be even offered a voluntary position before arriving, and this will make the process much more straightforward and smooth for you in Tanzania when you arrive. The next visa I'm going to talk to you about now, it's the single entry visa, also known as the ordinary visa. Now, this is a standard visa that is valid for 3 months, and most people who require a visa to enter the Republic of Tanzania usually gets this visa, and it lasts for 3 months. The cost for this visa is $50. And in 2018, the Tanzanian government introduced an e-visa service, which gives you the opportunity to apply for this visa online. I'll be leaving a link in the description below, which gives the link to the e-visa services in Tanzania where you can apply online. However, you can also secure your visa on land borders and when you land in Tanzania. But just bear in mind the process might take a longer period of time, especially if you have to wait in a line or queue. Okay, finally, the multiple entry visa. Now, I want to leave a disclaimer. American nationals who wish to visit Tanzania for tourism or holiday purposes must select this type of visa while applying online. Now, the good thing about the multiple entry visa is it's valid for up to 12 months, yeah, or a year. And within that period of time, if you can't stay in the country for 12 months straight at a time. You have to leave the country every 3 months and then return back to Tanzania, right? Now, what some people do, they may go on the border to Kenya, spend a few hours, and then cross back and then come back into Tanzania. Or they may just go to maybe, let's say, Zambia for a little of some time, or even Malawi for some time, because these are countries that borders Tanzania, and then return back to Tanzania. That's what some people do when they're staying for a long period of time. Now, the multiple entry visa costs $100 US. And this visa is issued usually to people or foreign nationals whose visit calls for frequent visits to the United Republic of Tanzania. These include directors of companies registered in Tanzania, but they don't reside in the country, persons engaged in bilateral meetings, spouses married to Tanzanian residents, government consulants, representatives of international NGOs, etc. So usually these type of people get their multiple entry visa. So for those who are not American citizens, you may be a British citizen, or someone from the Caribbean, or someone from other countries in Europe. When applying for the multiple entry visa, you will definitely have to have a solid reason why you want to apply for this visa, because it depends on what you will be doing in the country. So that's what you should be aware of. Also, people who are coming from the Caribbean, places like Grenada, Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, these countries you don't need a visa to enter Tanzania. You're visa exempt, so you can enter the country, and you'll be allowed to stay up to 90 days, 90-day period. But what you should be aware of is definitely after 90 days, you will definitely need to know what you're doing in the country, because you're supposed to leave after 90 days in theory. So you will need to prove, well, what you're doing in Tanzania now, if you want to stay for a longer period of time. Are you setting up a business? Are you studying Tanzania? Or you may be married to a Tanzanian citizen. You know, these are some of the things you'll have to present to the immigration as why you need to stay longer in Tanzania, depending on what you're doing in the country. And that ends our episode today in regards to the visa and residence permit in Tanzania, East Africa. I would like to thank you for watching, and I welcome you all to the community. We'll continue producing valuable and insightful content. I am Ifeanyi, and thank you for watching Smart Up Travel.